Greetings again for our third training. Levente, are you excited? All right, good. Now don't forget to put yourself on mute. That way we don't get any distractions in case something happens, right? Okay. Well, tonight we continue on our journey to becoming a better speaker. Are you interested, Levente, in becoming a better speaker? All right. Okay, good. So let's go to screen share and start to rock and roll right away. Let me go here. Oh, I forgot to do something. You know, I've realized what I could do at the beginning when I start up. I have that. Let's see if I can. Okay, there. Okay. What I forgot to do is, you know, at the top of the screen when I put in screen share, it has all this information, so I can't put my slides in a full screen. So I forgot I was going to put it at the bottom so I could do it with no problem. But anyway, we got it now. Right, and so we're continuing our look at the speech preparation steps. And this is our what? Third training on this. We're on a roll. So today we continue with the creating the content, you know, the system or the process I use for writing my speeches. And like I told you, I just hope you would use it as a beginning point, and then you can adapt it over time to what works best for you. Now today we'll finish up our look at the big picture. You know, we need to know the big picture before we write our speech, because it's important to understand everything you want to accomplish with your speech before you start writing it. Now, so far, we've looked at how to determine the objectives for your speech and knowing your audience. And last up for the big picture is knowing your purpose. And that's what we'll look at today. Now, the reason you give a speech, the purpose, is to transform your audience into a better version of themselves in some specific way or ways. The goal of this training tonight is for you to learn how to write a purpose statement for your speeches. Now, writing out the purpose of your speech in a one concise sentence will help guide you in creating your content. And it'll actually make it a lot easier as well. So remember the knowing your audience questions that we looked at on the last training? Who makes up your audience? What does your audience need? And why should your audience listen to you? Those are the questions we want to have answers to as we go into knowing our purpose. Now, the purpose of your speech is connected to those questions, or those answers to those questions that we just looked at from knowing your audience. So keep that in mind. Those answers will help you write your purpose. Now, let me give an example of this. And I should have done this the other day, but I didn't think of it. Now, let's take a speech I did last year, the Power of Love speech. That, you know, from what I saw, it had a huge impact on people. Now, when I started putting that speech together, who's my audience? Who was going to listen to it? Well, it was Toastmasters that came to the conference to go to the workshops and watch the speech contest. All right, so it was Toastmaster members, and a lot of them are more advanced, but there's a few that are just starting out. So most Toastmasters are interested at least in two things: personal development and wanting to help make the world a better place. So that was what I knew about my audience. And what did they need? What did they need? What do they need from me? Well, they needed to, what I wanted for them is they need to help those who are neglected, abandoned, and abused. So you see, we said that they're interested in making the world a better place. So I use that to try to motivate them, to inspire them to want to help those who are neglected, abandoned, or abused. Because a lot of times we don't think about that, about those people. Now, why should they listen to me? I would say because growing up, I had a father who did not love me. And I spent 5 years working in orphanages with babies and toddlers here in Romania. And I learned a lot about how you can help the neglected, the abandoned, and abused with the power of love to really make change in their lives. And so that's why I think they should listen to me. I have experience with this. I learned about this. So now I'm just going to share with them what I did. So that's it, to give you some examples. Now, as we move on, you start by choosing what topic you're going to speak about. When you were doing the survey for knowing your audience, you had a rough idea of what you want to talk about. Let's say like love, or you want to talk about the economy. So it gives you the big idea of what to talk about, but now you need to get it down to the specific topic that you want to talk about. And to do that, there's a 3-step process. You first do some brainstorming for ideas on what to talk about based on the big picture that you wrote for your speech. And you're just writing down a lot of ideas. We're doing searching online and things like this. Next, you want to select the topic, the specific topic. You have all these ideas here, and then you zero it down to the main topic, the thing you want to talk about. And then what you want to do is do research on that topic to make sure that you really know and understand everything that you need to know in order to put the speech, to write the speech. Now, I will give you a PDF with links to articles on these things. And later I will show you some examples here in the slides. So these will give you some opportunity to learn some things, to get more ideas. Because again, to talk in detail about this would take a long time, but I just want to give you some basics, and then you can learn on your own by reading those articles. So after you've done all this, after you've brainstormed and selected your topic and did some research, what do you do then? What do you need to do? Well, you need to begin working on writing out the purpose of your speech. Now, what I use is, for me, is I use this kind of inverted pyramid to understand how I want the process to go. So I have my topic up here. Okay, I have the topic, and that's where I start. I have my topic. But then what I need to do is figure out the general purpose of my speech. And then I want to figure out what is the specific purpose of my speech. And that is the things the steps we're going to go through for this. And I just want to share. We already looked at topic. Now let's move on to the general purpose. The general purpose is the broad goal of what you want to accomplish with your speech. And most speeches, not all, but most speeches fall into one of 4 categories. They are this: the general purpose to inform, okay, to persuade people, to entertain, or to inspire. Now, speeches may contain elements of more than one general purpose, but the key is to identify the most important purpose. That should be the one that motivates how you put your speech together. So you need to determine the main goal of your speech in this way. Now let's look at each of these general purposes. To inform, okay, it's pretty simple. You want to increase your audience's knowledge of and understanding of a subject or a skill. Right? You're just informing them. To persuade, you want to change your audience's attitudes, actions, or behaviors, or to convince them to accept or approve of your point of view. Now, to entertain, to amuse, or provide enjoyment for your audience. Now, like I said, we could have more than one of these involved in our speech. Like every time I'm in a humor speech contest, my main goal is to entertain people, to make them laugh. But I always have something in my speech that points to something they can do to change their lives. Okay, so try to inspire them in a little way, right? Which is the next one, right? To inspire. That means to motivate your audience to see better and greater possibilities. You know, it's trying to move them to willingly change their beliefs or behaviors to get them to take a specific action because they believe what you said. So inspiration Here's a question. What's the difference between to persuade or to inspire? Is there a difference between the two? Well, they can be pretty similar in many ways, but at least in my mind, this is how I differentiate them. When you, whoops, I'm sorry, I already give you the answer right there. What is the difference? When you try to persuade people, you aim for the head. You're spending a lot of time with knowledge. And when you try to inspire people, you aim for the heart. Now, for both of them, you're aiming for the heart and the mind in both of them, the head. But when you're trying to inspire them, you're spending more effort on moving them in their hearts, like a motivational speaker. So again, you can have more than one general purpose, but there should be one overriding that's the most important, and that's your main focus. So once you have established the general purpose of your speech, you need to move on to creating the specific purpose. Now, the specific purpose describes how you want your audience to change. What change do you want to see in your audience? It goes connected back to the need that we looked at in knowing our audience. Okay, well, there are 3 questions that you could ask to help you determine how you want your audience to change. And they are this. What do I want my audience to know? What do I want my audience to feel? And what do I want my audience to do? Those are 3 questions you can ask to help you determine your specific purpose. So let's move on now to figuring out how we take this information, what we get from these answers, and put it in a statement about the purpose. So the steps for writing your purpose statement, it should involve these things. It should have the general purpose within it. Then it should mention the audience in some way. And it also should have a prepositional phrase, something like to, about, why, or other prepositional phrases. And you should be having in there the response you want from your audience. And those things together will make up your purpose statement. Now, this is you're just starting out. And for me, it took me a time to get used to this. And like I told you before, when I tried to get other people to do some of these things, they said, oh, William, I don't want to do all this work. But believe me, it may take a lot of time at first, but over time it gets easier. And it actually is very helpful for you in putting your speech together. So the purpose statement should be these things. It should be 1 sentence only. It should be written from the audience's perspective. It should be specific, clear, and concise. And it should be attainable, realistic, and actionable. Now, these last 3, the attainable, realistic, and actionable, they don't apply to all speeches. If you're doing an entertaining speech, it might not be realistic, okay? So, but for most speeches that you want to teach people or have them do something, these are the things that you should have on it. Now, the first 3, I think, are pretty easy to understand, right? 1 sentence, okay? From the audience perspective, specific, clear, and concise. I think those things are understandable. But I wanted to spend a few minutes explaining the other 3, okay? And here they are. Something that is attainable, okay? It means it's able to be achieved or accomplished or attained, that you can succeed in getting or doing something. Now, if you tell someone you want to fly to the moon with your arms, well, that's not attainable. So that's not a realistic purpose for a speech. Okay, something that's realistic. No, something that is practical and sensible is the idea you want in that. You want something that represents things in a way that are accurate and true to life. You don't want to get, I don't know, I've been to speeches where people say things that seem pretty incredulous or stupid to me, you know, because they're just going off in these far-fetched things. So I don't find that attractive. So you want to be realistic. You want to be practical and sensible in what you're sharing. And also, it should be actionable. It means it's whatever you're speaking about, your audience should be able to put it into action. It should have some practical value for their lives and help change them. Now, I'm going to give you some example of these things, some of them, from my speech, The Power of Love, which I talked about a little bit earlier. So I'm going to share with you the purpose statement I came up for my contest speech last spring. Okay, well, that was spring before last. All right, and here it is. My purpose statement is this: to inspire the audience to change the world one heart at a time with the power of love. Now, do you think this fits the criteria we looked at? See, it begins with a specific purpose, to inspire. It mentions the audience, to inspire the audience. Now, I could have been more specific. I could have said, to inspire the Toastmasters at the contest. Okay? Could have been more specific. It uses a prepositional phrase, to change the world. And is it specific? Yeah, I want them to change the world one heart at a time with the power of love. Okay, so that's something. Is it realistic? Can someone work to change one heart in this whole world? I think that's realistic. Can they use love to help change people? Yes, I think these are realistic things that people can do. So this is a way of putting together your purpose statement. And it does act kind of like a compass guiding you along the way. So what you want to do now is you want to put all together everything we looked at with this knowing your purpose, and use all that to write your purpose for your next speech. Now, there's more to learn about this, and I said I'd talk about this earlier. Here's what I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you a PDF with links for articles of dealing with what we just looked at. Brainstorming for topic, okay, selecting a topic, researching your topic, and knowing your purpose. I'm not going to tell you which ones to read and look at, and you don't have to if you don't want to. But I'm saying I've given you a resource if you want to learn more. And you can decide how many you want to read. And maybe you want to read a few each time you do a speech. If you're really ambitious, you can do them all. But at least read 2 or 3 of each section to get an idea for these things as you work on doing your own speech. Now remember, if you want to become a better speaker, you need to learn what are the best practices for writing, practicing, and delivering speeches. Learning is important. Then you need to apply that to your speaking. You take the learning, apply it to speaking, and then you continually work on improving yourself as a speaker, looking at the feedback and the videos and that, and then continue again with learning, speaking, improving, learning, speaking, improving. So that's what I encourage you. The learning is important. If you just try to get by with little, then you're probably not going to grow very much. It does take effort, and you do have to embrace excellence if you want to become better. So that concludes our look at knowing your purpose. Now here's what I want you to do with what I shared with you today. When it's time, when you get to that point in your speech, to write out your purpose statement for your next speech. This is the last thing you need to do for the big picture. After you write it out, what should you do? You should check it with Grammarly before you send it to me. And after using Grammarly, send it to me either Word doc or a copy of a Google Doc. And like I said before, I'll just keep repeating, I will mark my feedback in red and send the doc back to you so you can make changes. And we can go back and forth and you can ask me questions. And once you're satisfied, then you can move on to the next step, which will be to begin writing your speech. So these are the things we covered in these 3 trainings: knowing our objectives, knowing our audience, and knowing our purpose. And together they make up the big picture. The better you understand the big picture, the better you will be able to write a speech that is engaging, impactful, and life-changing. don't take the easy way out. As I said before, embrace excellence, pursue it. And all you do in regards to becoming a speaker, better speaker, and putting together better speeches, and it will have a huge impact in your life. Your journey to becoming a better speaker has begun in earnest now. That is, if you put these trainings to practice. Remember, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So try to have each part of the big picture done before we meet again to start going over doing an outline and making an outline for a speech. So once again, we've come to the end of our time with what I wanted to share with you. So let's finish our time together with a little Q&A. Let me get this screen share off. Okay, Levente, do you have any questions?
Thank you for asking. I guess I do. How do we know, after we had our speech, that we have inspired our audience, reached our goal? Is there any signs, or how can we find out that our speech reached its goal?
The initial sign would be during the speech. You would see people really engaging with you. Okay? When I did the speech, The Power of Love, man, I could see people's faces. I could see the emotion. People were actually crying, some of them. And there was, and then after the speech, right as soon as I got done with the speech and the contest was over, many people came up and gave me hugs or told me how much it impacted them. Right? So that's one way. But I'm saying, when you get done with doing your speech, an inspirational speech, people should be going, rah, rah, rah. If they're not, if they're going, oh, then chances are it wasn't that inspiring. Okay. So those would be the initial things. Other than that, you could follow up on people to ask them. You could ask for some feedback in regards to that and ask people what they thought, they felt inspired. Or maybe you could wait a week or two and maybe send an email to certain people that were there and ask them how they've used that, if it's made any changes in their lives. So that's all I can think of.
How about if is there any change in the symptoms if we try to pursue them with one of our speeches?
What do you mean pursue them?
I mean, this
or
is
persuade.
Persuade, sorry. Pursue.
Okay.
Persuade. Yeah, sorry.
Huh?
Persuade.
Well, okay. And I can say this the same for the inspiration. For both of those, you do the best job you know how, and you leave the results with them ultimately, right? The way of seeing if you're persuading people, again, it's how do they react when you're done speaking. But the thing is, over time, you learn better and better how to write the words to make them more engaging and inspiring. So like using stories, okay? Using stories are going to have a huge impact on if you inspire or persuade people. So there's certain things you can use within your speech that can help do that. And this will come with time. So when you decide that you want to do a speech where it's persuasion, okay, I want to persuade people, you should go do research. How to persuade people in a speech. And go see what it says. And learn. It's going to be a learning process. But for me, I find that first thing you want to do for any of these things is you want to be real. You just want to be authentic. You want to be yourself. Don't try to be someone you're not. And like, see, you have a good sense of humor. So you're going to use that. And you can use that within inspiring speeches or persuade. Humor goes a long ways with everything, okay? So it'll give you an advantage that will be better for you than a lot of people, because a lot of people don't have your sense of humor, okay? You know, I don't know if we should say it's great or what.
Okay.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Not for the moment, thank you.
Okay, so the main thing is, I'm glad that you want to see your speeches have impact. ultimately, though, I can say from some of the contests I've done and even speeches in our club, is that sometimes you really don't know. And you may never know totally for sure. But the best way to know is to see if they're staying engaged with you instead of yawning and looking away, if they're laughing with you, and how they respond when the speech is over. These, I think, are the best ways, best indicators to know that you've had some impact on them. But ultimately, it's in their hands. You do the best job you can, and you leave it in their hands. They have to do it. So even like these trainings, okay? I can just try to put them together the best I know how, and then it's up to you, right?
Yeah, right.
So anyway, thanks for your time together, and